The Blackberry Jam Mystery, a Miss Marple mystery. Hi there, welcome back to Haunting Vales. Tonight's mystery begins in the most ordinary of places, a village kitchen where jars of homemade blackberry jam line the shelves, sweet and carefully prepared for the coming winter. In St. Mary Mead, such things are part of daily life, comforting, familiar, and never questioned. But when one particular jar goes missing and a strange stain is later found where it should have been, Miss Marple begins to suspect there is far more to it than simple carelessness. The villagers laugh at the idea that jam could matter, but Miss Marple notices the hurried excuses, the locked pantry, and the curious way certain people seem far too interested in recovering that missing jar. Because sometimes the smallest household thing can hide the largest secret. And in St. Mary Mead, even something as sweet as blackberry jam can leave a bitter trail. Before we uncover what was truly hidden in that missing jar, don't forget to subscribe for more haunting Miss Marple mysteries on Haunting Vales. Chapter 1. The Blackberry Stains on the Table. Stony Creek was the sort of village where every front gate creaked the same way it had for 30 years, and every neighbor knew when another neighbor had burned the toast. Quiet place, too quiet, some said, the kind of quiet that made strange things sound louder, a dropped spoon, a slammed door, a whisper in the dark. Mrs. Agnes Bell lived alone in a crooked stone cottage at the far end of Hollow Lane, with only her cat, Pickles, and her blackberry bushes for company. She was known for two things in the village, her sharp tongue and her blackberry jam. Every summer she made dozens of jars, thick and dark and sweet, and sold them at the church fair. People queued for it every year, said there was nothing like it in all of England. But on the morning of the fair, something felt wrong. Her stall was there, 6 neat jars lined up on the wooden board, polished clean, labels straight, ribbons tied. Perfect, too perfect. Yet Agnes Bell herself was nowhere to be seen. That alone was enough to stir talk. Mrs. Bell was never late, not once in 15 years. The vicar checked his watch 3 times. The baker muttered she must have caught ill. The butcher said maybe she'd fallen asleep in her chair. But Miss Marple, sitting near the sponge cakes with her knitting in her lap, thought differently. Old women, she often said, were creatures of habit, and when habit broke, something had pushed it. By 11 o'clock, concern turned into worry. A small group went to Agnes Bell's cottage. The front door was unlocked. That was the first thing. The second was the smell. Not smoke, not gas. Blackberries. Strong, fresh, thick in the air like spilled syrup. The kitchen was in disorder. A pan overturned on the floor, a wooden spoon snapped clean in 2, jam splashed across the table, dripping down like dark blood. One chair knocked over, and near the stove, still warm, a pot of fruit left unfinished. Agnes Bell was gone. No coat, no handbag, no walking shoes. Miss Marple stood by the table, staring at the stains. People looked for signs of theft, money untouched, silver untouched, but Miss Marple noticed something stranger. There were 2 teacups on the table, one washed, one not. Agnes had company the night before, and whoever it was had left in a hurry. Inspector Graves arrived an hour later, grim-faced and sharp as a knife blade. He looked around the kitchen and called it suspicious at once. Missing person, maybe worse. Then came the discovery that changed the feeling in the room. On the kitchen floor, half hidden under the tablecloth, was a patch of blackberry jam with a boot print pressed straight through it. A man's boot, heavy heel, fresh. Miss Marple stared at it for a long moment, and then she said something that made everyone uneasy. If the jam is fresh, then the lie is fresh too. No one understood what she meant. Not yet. But by nightfall, when Agnes Bell's body was found near the blackberry bushes behind Hollow Lane, cold and still under the rain, everyone knew one thing. This wasn't an accident, and the blackberry jam was somehow at the heart of it. Chapter 2. The Recipe No One Was Meant to See. Rain came down hard the next morning, beating against the windows of Stony Creek like impatient fingers. The whole village felt different now, heavier. Word of Agnes Bell's death had spread fast, faster than fire through dry grass. People spoke in hushed voices at shop doors, leaning close, glancing over shoulders, as though the killer might be standing right beside them, buying bread or sugar, as if nothing had happened. Inside Blackberry Cottage, Inspector Graves moved through the rooms with the careful patience of a man who knew murder hid in small places. Drawers were opened, cupboards searched, every shelf, every corner, every loose bit of paper examined. But Miss Marple sat quietly near the fire, her hands folded over her knitting, watching it all with those sharp, restless eyes of hers. She knew policemen looked for evidence. She looked for habits, for changes, for little things that didn't belong. And there were plenty. Agnes Bell's kitchen had always been neat in a rough sort of way, not tidy exactly, but ordered by her own strange logic. Jars in rows, spoons in the same drawer, sugar kept in the blue tin by the stove. But now it felt disturbed, not robbed, disturbed, as though someone had searched in a hurry, knowing exactly what they wanted and growing desperate when they couldn't find it. Then Inspector Graves found the recipe book. It was tucked beneath a flour sack in the pantry, hidden badly, almost as if someone had shoved it there at the last second. The cover was stained dark with blackberry juice, the pages swollen from damp fingers. Agnes Bell guarded that book like treasure, never let anyone near it, not even at the fair. And yet here it was, abandoned. Miss Marple took it carefully and began turning the pages. Jam recipes, plum preserve, gooseberry jelly, apple tart. Ordinary things, until she noticed it. Several pages were missing, not torn by age, torn recently, jagged edges still fresh. The blackberry recipe was gone. Inspector Graves frowned at that. Someone wanted the recipe? Miss Marple gave a small shake of her head. No one kills for jam. But she wasn't certain of that, not entirely. Because people rarely killed for the thing itself. They killed for what the thing carried. And tucked between the remaining pages, folded small and flat, was an old letter, yellowed, brittle. Miss Marple unfolded it carefully. It was dated 20 years back, and there, in shaky ink, were the words that chilled the room. If anyone learns what happened to Walter, we're finished. Walter Green. The name struck like thunder. Walter Green had died 20 years ago, fell into the river after a storm, they'd said. Bad footing, too much drink, tragic but simple. Except simple things often weren't simple at all. Miss Marple remembered Walter, a cheerful man, strong swimmer, not the sort to drown in shallow river water. And now Agnes Bell had kept this letter hidden all these years. Inspector Graves looked grim. "You think it's connected?" Miss Marple stared at the page. "Oh yes, I'd say very much so." That afternoon, Edward Bell was brought in for questioning. He looked dreadful, pale skin, red eyes, coat soaked through from the rain. He admitted visiting Agnes the night before, couldn't deny it. Too many had seen him walking up Hollow Lane. He said they argued, loudly, about money. Agnes had threatened to cut him out of her will. That gave him motive, bad motive. But as Miss Marple watched him, she felt something scratching at her mind. Edward was frightened, yes, angry too, but not like a murderer, more like a fool who'd walked into trouble and found himself trapped in it. Then she looked at his boots, mud still stuck to the heels, same shape as the print in the jam, same size. Inspector Graves noticed it too, and for a moment it looked finished, clean, easy, too easy. That was what bothered Miss Marple most. Murder rarely tied itself up so neatly. Later that evening, after the questioning, Miss Marple asked to see the jam jars from the church fair. The inspector looked puzzled, but allowed it. She opened one, smelled it, then dipped the tip of a spoon inside and tasted it. Her eyes narrowed at once. Wrong, very wrong. It wasn't Agnes Bell's jam. Too sweet, too smooth, missing the sharp, wild taste of real blackberry. This was made by someone else, which meant the 6 jars placed at the fair that morning were fakes. And if they were fakes, where were the real jars? Miss Marple turned the glass over in her hands and saw it. A tiny scrape beneath the lid, as if something had been hidden there. Something small, a note, a key, a letter. Suddenly, the jam wasn't jam anymore. It was a hiding place, and Agnes Bell had hidden something worth killing for. That night, long after the village had gone dark and the rain slowed to a whisper, Miss Marple returned to Blackberry Cottage alone. The house felt colder now, empty, still. She moved quietly into the pantry, lantern in hand, studying the shelves. 6 empty spaces, but there, pushed far at the back, behind sacks of sugar, was a 7th jar, unlabeled, untouched, waiting. Miss Marple lifted it slowly, her fingers trembling just slightly, and beneath the thick layer of blackberry jam, sunk deep at the bottom like a stone in black water, was a key to something Agnes Bell had died protecting. And suddenly Miss Marple understood. The murder had nothing to do with money, nothing to do with recipes. It was about something older, something buried. And whatever that key opened would tell the real story.
Chapter 3. The Thing Buried Under Sweetness. Miss Marple did not sleep much that night. The 7th jar sat on her bedside table, the dark jam inside looking almost black in the candlelight, thick as ink, hiding its secret at the bottom. By morning, the key had been washed clean and laid neatly beside Agnes Bell's diary. Small brass thing, old, worn smooth by years of handling, the sort of key that belonged to something meant to stay shut. And Agnes Bell had buried it in jam. That alone said plenty. People hide things in drawers, under mattresses, behind books. But hiding something inside a jar of blackberry jam, that meant Agnes believed whoever came looking would search everywhere except there. Miss Marple turned that over in her mind while the village woke under a grey sky. By breakfast, Inspector Graves arrived. He looked tired, rough around the edges, like a man chasing too many pieces of the same puzzle. Miss Marple handed him the key without a word. He turned it in his fingers. "Where did you find this?" "In the 7th jar." His eyes narrowed. 7th? There were 6 at the church fair, but Agnes made 7 this week. Mrs. Carter mentioned it herself. One jar was missing from the store. Inspector Graves understood at once. The real jar, the hidden one. And if Agnes had hidden the key, then whatever it opened mattered more than money, more than recipes, more than anything. They searched the cottage again, this time properly, not for signs of struggle, for locks, for hidden spaces. It was Miss Marple who found it. Upstairs, beneath Agnes Bell's bed, hidden under loose floorboards, was a small oak box covered in dust. Old, locked, the brass key slid in perfectly. Inside were papers, letters tied with string, bank receipts, a faded photograph, and one thick envelope marked in Agnes Bell's handwriting, "To be opened if anything happens to me." Inspector Graves opened it carefully. Inside was the truth. 20 years ago, Walter Green had not drowned. He had been poisoned. Agnes discovered it after his death, but kept silent out of fear. The poison had come from the village chemist, Mr. Finch. Walter had discovered Finch was selling dangerous mixtures quietly, off the books, to people who wanted things done discreetly. Sleeping powders, strong tonics, things that could kill if used badly. Walter threatened to expose him. Days later, Walter was dead. Agnes knew, and for 20 years she carried it, silent, watching, waiting. But age changes people, makes them want old wrongs put right. Agnes had decided to go to the police, and Finch found out. Miss Marple sat very still. The whole thing now sat plain as daylight. Finch visited Agnes the night she died. Edward Bell had argued with her earlier, yes, loud enough for neighbors to hear. That gave Finch the perfect cover. He arrived later. Agnes confronted him, threatened to hand over the letters. He searched for them, couldn't find them, because Agnes had hidden the key inside the jam. There was a struggle, the broken spoon, the spilled jam, the chair knocked over, and then Finch shoved her, hard. Her head struck the stone hearth, dead before she hit the floor. After that, panic. He dragged her body to Hollow Lane to make it look like an outside attack, then replaced the 6 jars at the church fair with fake ones, hoping everyone would think Agnes had prepared them herself and gone out later. A false timeline, a clever trick, but not clever enough, because Finch didn't know Agnes made 7. That afternoon, the whole village gathered at the vicarage. Inspector Graves called it a formal discussion, but everyone knew what it was, a trap. Mr. Finch stood by the fireplace, stiff and pale. Miss Marple laid out the facts slowly, calmly, like setting pieces on a chessboard. The false jam, the missing jar, the hidden key, the old letters, Walter Green's death, and Agnes Bell's final decision to speak. Finch tried to laugh it off at first, said it was nonsense, said Agnes was old and confused. But then Miss Marple showed him the photograph, Walter Green and Finch together, and on the back, in Agnes Bell's handwriting, he gave Walter the powder. That broke him. His face collapsed, the color left him, and then, like rotten wood giving way, the confession came. Walter first, Agnes second. 2 murders, 20 years apart, both buried under silence. Inspector Graves arrested him before sunset. The village watched from windows as Finch was taken away. No one waved, no one spoke, because in villages like Stony Creek, murder changed the shape of things. People still smiled, still brought bread, still went to church, but something underneath had shifted. That evening, Miss Marple sat alone by her fire, Agnes Bell's diary resting in her lap. Case closed, or so it seemed. But then she turned the final page and froze. One line, written the night before Agnes died. Finch was not alone.
Miss Marple stared at it for a long while. Not alone, meaning someone helped him, or someone else knew. Someone still walking about the village, pouring tea, saying good morning, smiling as though nothing had happened. And outside, in the dark garden, Miss Marple heard the soft crack of a twig. Someone was standing out there, watching the house, waiting. If you enjoyed this mystery, subscribe and stay with Miss Marple for the next case, because some secrets die hard and some killers never work alone.